Okay, so the response to the Avid video that I put out last week has been tremendous. I really was not expecting so much engagement on my little channel. So, to both those who agreed and disagreed with my assessment, I appreciate you contributing to a thoughtful discussion. I really do. And now I can be a bit verbose. Part of my neurotype is that I like to communicate with detail and very thoroughly. So YouTube is a nice, if dangerous, platform for me to vent on, and sometimes that can get me in trouble. You can see in the comments to that initial Avid video that I can get in the habit of thinking as I type and tend to flesh out ideas in what is considered excess for internet culture. But I'm trying to get better, and so once I caught myself, I decided to hold back and use those ideas to create a follow-up video responding to some of those comments. Let's discuss. You silly mutt. So the first thing that I need to mention is that there have been way too many people expressing similar feelings that I have for me to mention them all here in this follow-up. It did help me feel rather validated though, so thank you. And there has been lots of love for Reaper in the comments. People like Brian who said, "Say hello, Reaper. Like you, I learned the industry standard whilst doing my degree, but when all the hardware I purchased became outdated and unable to use, I said, nah, let's try something else. And along comes all this hype about Reaper. No bull, it's a steep learning curve, but once you're into it, you won't regret it. To ease you in, there are Pro Tools skins, and you can take all, repeat, all the tools shortcuts and apply them to Reaper. Give it a try." So, thanks for the recommendation, Brian. And then Old Bones said, "Well said, brother. Use your dollar to holla. Go to another DAW, great vid." Thanks, Old Bones. Appreciate that. And so yeah, before I continue, I just wanted to say thanks to everyone who isn't going to be mentioned directly in this video, because I'm mainly going to hit things that made me think through stuff or like expand my position a little bit. All right, first up was Joe, who said, "Okay, how much does Pro Tools cost? $600? You're going to be getting a new Pro Tools pretty much every 2 years or so with purchasing anyway. So you pay $300 one year, then you pay $300 the next year. So congratulations, you paid the same amount you would have for 2 years, LOL. You'll keep getting updates along the way, and you won't run out of updates for free after your 2 years. Sounds like the same money it always has been, LOL." Now, my reaction to this is first notice that this comment doesn't compare Pro Tools with the competition. It compares Pro Tools with older Pro Tools. But even then, it wasn't the full 700, from what I remember, not 600, every 2 years. That was just the initial purchase. The upgrade and support plan renewal was $99 for a long time, and then increased to $200 in July of 2019, while the initial purchase price remained the same. And this is for Pro Tools Standard, of course. So the longer you stayed on the platform, the more the initial purchase hit got spread out over the years, and the more value per dollar the software provided. And if you ever decided to stop paying for the upgrade plan, not only did you not lose access, but there was a $300 reinstatement option rather than having to pay the full $700 again. So just to think through this, I first bought Pro Tools in 2010. So let's do some math here. 2022 minus 2010 is 12 years. So $700 for that initial purchase divided by 12 is $58.33. Plus the $99 annual support plan is about $157 a year. Now let's calculate the total I've paid to Avid. I promise I'm really not trying to be contrarian here. I really just want to see this math, and I thought, others might too. So $700 plus $99 times 10 for the 10 years. That's the $99 a year for the upgrade plan times the 10 years that it was that price, plus $200 times 2, which is, the 2 years that it was $200 for the upgrade plan. That comes to a total of $2,090 paid to Avid over the course of 12 years, as opposed to what new users are going to encounter, which is $300 a year over 12 years, is $3,600 paid to Avid over the course of those 12 years, which a $1,500 difference. And that number will only ever grow by $300 a year like clockwork, unless the user jumps between different tiers month to month as needed, and I honestly have no idea how easy or cumbersome that would be. Now, it does get significantly closer if we include their plugin bundle, which it wasn't around, 12 years ago when I started using Pro Tools, but let's, just for the sake of argument, say it was. And that plugin bundle is now part of this Pro Tools subscription, which this may be how they arrived at the $300 a year subscription fee. So the plugin bundle's $10 a month times 12 months, so $120 a year, times 12 years is $1,440, plus the $2,090 is $3,530. Really, really close to that $3,600 cost that we're looking at now with this new system. But honestly, the only plugin I ever used out of that bundle was Space. For everything else, I found that there was better options via third parties. So, it could be said that on average, it could be practically the same price as it was if one was forced to tack on all the extras that are now included. But even if I'm paying the same price to get all the features, where's the value in renting at that price versus owning? It's software. It's not a house. Like, Avid doesn't have to replace my roof and water heater because they're the landlord when they break. And owning Pro Tools isn't going to cause my PC to increase my net worth. I mean, apples to apples, one model means I can decide if I can afford an upgrade, and the other means I have to stay on the tit to even use the service, which, forgive the southernism. If I have to give up my ability to choose, I want a price break, not a break even. But isn't that like the subtext or the subtopic that has been in this discussion since the start? Freedom of the customer to choose for themselves. If I want to subscribe to Prime and watch Prime Video, cool. If I want to go and buy the digital copy of a movie I watched on Prime in case it gets pulled down, cool. If I want to buy the Stars or the Paramount add-on for Prime, cool. But say Prime is going to increase significantly in cost, it's going to eliminate my ability to purchase movies, and it's going to include all those extra add-on services I didn't ask for as justification for the price increase. Not cool. And I think that's where a lot of us are saying that Avid is making a mistake here. Many of us feel backed into a corner where we either have to accept a model that we don't agree with or jump ship. And there are numerous other ships in the water right next to us waving us over. All right, next comment is from Thomas, who says, as much as I love Reaper, I think Pro Tools is still better when it comes to automation, which is really important when it comes to mixing movies. The new Pro Tools Studio really is a good upgrade with 5.1, and the product seems to be more and more aimed to that industry. As for music mixing, I think at equal pricing, Reaper would be at least as good as Pro Tools. Now, I like Thomas's point here that this new structure might work really well and be very cost effective for audio post in other industries that utilize surround workflows, as well as those that the artist tier limits would work well for. Now, I go beyond 32 audio tracks quite frequently, so it wouldn't really work for me. It just seems like the large number of people who are right in between those 2 points and are primarily working in stereo are being sold less for more. especially when compared with competing software rather than Avid's own history. At least it feels that way at the moment. All right, and Steve said, it is oriented toward providing a service and not a product. That is what this change is. He said, I have a perpetual license that expires for service support in about 2 months, but I expect to be able to continue using this perpetual license after this time, just without the service support to mean future updates. The rub is that if you want to update this perpetual license to new and up-to-date versions, nope. One will not be able to do that, as I understand it. So the perpetual owned product will become less and less up-to-date as a result. However, the new mid-tier yearly license fees, or monthly for a much higher dollar value, does have some nifty benefits that my perpetual never had, this being for television and film sound production. For this, currently I have a 1-year subscription for an ultimate license, which for me cost a bomb in Australia. So that is why I think subscription models work well for libraries of content and cyclable products like meal plan deliveries, but not necessarily individual products that should last a considerable amount of time like standalone software. I mean, heck, even most MMO games have gone free to play lately with subscriptions to unlock extras that change with each month. That way, subscribers feel like each time they pay that fee, they are getting something new and exciting. I mean, I remember when the Old Republic came out and it was going to be subscription, but the user base was so upset that eventually it just went free to play and then had DLC, microtransactions, and subscription add-ons for the developers to make money. And it's interesting, again, with going to Thomas's comment, that again we see mentioned that these changes are good for film and video, but not necessarily for music production. Maybe that's a big part of this play that I'm just not considering. Perhaps I'm no longer the target audience because video is really a small part of what I do, and that even is in stereo most of the time for YouTube and social. So, I mean, I'd like to get more into game audio and audio post, but at this point in our studio growth, it's just not there business-wise. So maybe because the features that are being promoted here aren't immediately as beneficial to me personally, I'm not perceiving the value they bring relative to the changes in price structure. I would also add that Avid has a history of lackluster customer service that they charge a premium for. The other video that was most recommending my video to other people was, it was called, Is Pro Tools Even Still Worth It? And the video was a vlog style, kind of like this, where someone was having crashes and they reached out to support. They were ignored for days, and eventually they reached out to the director of customer service at Avid on LinkedIn repeatedly and constantly had to get them involved for the support team to actually even call them. And the comments on that one had numerous similar stories. So not that Steve is wrong at all here, because I think he really makes some good points. And that probably is closer to what Avid is thinking. But if your company is going to sell itself on providing a service rather than a product, it had better be able to provide some service. Okay, and this next comment I did actually reply to on YouTube, but it had some important points. So this was from Adam, who said, if you can't justify $32 a month on a tool for your business, you need a new business model. That shouldn't even be a half hour of billable time for anyone doing this for a living or even for fun. In a world of everyone wants everything free, I tend to like to keep businesses open and people working, so I pay for my software. Now, leaving some of the political connotations of that behind, I replied that that's kind of beside the point, isn't it? I mean, the argument isn't that the subscription fees are that expensive compared to billable time. It's that Avid doesn't offer adequate value for the price they charge relative to the competition in a changing industry. There are also numerous reports of lackluster customer service, as we mentioned before, Again, unlike the competition, they charge separately for that customer service. And if it works for you, great. I hope nobody craps on anyone for how they prefer to work. So that is my perspective on that. Let's keep comments clean and positive and encouraging. But it isn't unreasonable to expect a company to be competitive rather than use a legacy and the established infrastructure of a rapidly changing industry as their primary selling point, rather than actual product and value. I personally want to feel like any company I support values me as a customer, wants my business, and is willing to earn it, just like we have to do for our clients. Not just expect my funds regardless of amount because, well, we're us. So from there, Adam responded, and he said adequate value. It's absolutely a value if you've learned it inside and out over the last 30 years. And the time it would take to learn a new DAW would be far more costly than the $32 a month for a lot of us old guys. So I said, if the software has emotional and workflow attachments for folks, that's cool too. But mathematically speaking, Studio One Pro is $400. The Ableton Live Suite is $750. Cubase Pro is $580. Logic Pro is $200, and Reaper is $60. Each one is perpetual ownership, with new versions released on a 2 to 3 year cycle. And support for the previous versions is usually continued from there for another 1 to 2 years after the release of the new version. And a lot of them also have upgrade paths. So even if we only divide those numbers by 2 for a biannual version cycle, discounting continued support and upgrade discounts. The most expensive one, Ableton, is $375 annually, just a bit more than the Avid middle tier for their top tier, and is owned, not leased software. And these companies also provide tech support for their products without an additional charge and have fewer complaints about their customer service practices. I continued to say that, if you're invested in the Avid hardware platforms and have decades of experience working in the one software, then it makes total sense to be at the very least reluctant to make that change. But lots of people aren't in that boat and are frustrated that a company that has entrenched itself so much in the industry that many of those folks with 30 years of experience write everything else off as less than, and tend to treat indie producers and engineers with kind of laughable contempt rather than mentorship, and do so without so much as a second glance. And Avid seems to be loath to compete with anyone but their own legacy. So amending onto that, this is kind of a separate subject, but I do have a bit of a sore spot about studio owners with bad attitudes towards younger engineers. Whether it was in school or working with bands or talking with studio owners, I heard so much about how important it is to be personable and be able to work with musicians and to not be closed-minded because you can learn something from anybody in this industry. Right. I mean, learning how to be humble and open and knowing when to speak versus when to listen are crucial in running a studio. But when I got out of audio school and I was calling everywhere to try and get an internship, whether it was paid or unpaid, I got shot down left and right. And they didn't have an intern, they didn't want an intern, and they didn't want to babysit or mentor anybody, even if that person was willing to fetch coffee and clean toilets for free. In all that time, I found 2 studios that said I could help out, and only one of which actually open their doors to me for a day, and I think the most frustrating thing was after that, then they would turn around and I would see posts from these engineers and studio owners on social making fun of home and indie studios in order to promote themselves because, hey, we may be expensive, but at least we aren't that guy. It's not cool. And that's a big part of why small studios exist, because people like me were put in a position to either give up or say, screw you, I'll do it myself, just you watch. And this whole industry standard attitude around Avid, it really just perpetuates this, which I kind of address in my reply, where I said, it's a big industry and an even bigger world. Avid and Pro Tools are brand names for software. That's all. It's just a DAW, like all the rest. If you want to keep buying Gucci, because you can afford it and you like it, good on you. But it doesn't serve anyone to get mad when the masses buy Levi's because they fit just as good, and then they point out that the designer brand is overpriced compared to the competition. Just FYI, I know nothing about designer clothing and just wanted an analogy to use. But another point to address here is that existing infrastructure. Adam isn't wrong. If he has 30 years of Pro Tools and in his brain and has tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars tied up in HD equipment that won't work on any other platform, imagine the cost of switching for him. I'd be defending Avid too. But the days of having to purchase Pro Tools HD and get an HD interface and a Control24 console in order to have decent preamps and DSP and high track counts are long behind us. Long behind us. And looking at the comments I'm seeing, that whole purchase validation thing is not gonna keep many people on the bus. Okay, so the last thing I really want to address in this follow-up video was some confusion on how Avid is going to handle existing perpetual customers. Some people were getting the impression that Avid's just going to completely strip away existing perpetual licenses, and that's not true. So DK said, well, poop. I just bought a Pro Tools perpetual license with the intent of not renewing it and keeping it as it is until it won't work any longer. It's just for personal use with home movie and shorts. Okay, so if you have a perpetual license, it won't be taken away. You will still own that software forever. However, from what I and many others have read, it looks like once your update and support plan expires, that's it. You won't be able to renew it and continue to receive updates. So if your operating system updates 3 years from now and crashes Pro Tools, then, and after the point of your support plan having expired, so sorry, the only way to get the patch that they released to fix that issue is going to be to get a subscription. Again, from what I and many others have read and deduced. What we will have to see is when you do that, will they still let you keep your perpetual? Or will they ask you to surrender your perpetual license in exchange for the subscription? Or will they maybe offer a discount on the subscription if you cross-grade from perpetual to subscription, and then just have to surrender it then in order to take advantage of that discount? I don't know. We're just going to have to watch on that one and see. Okay, y'all. I think that's about it for the comments thus far that I felt really warranted a more thorough exploration. I'm probably going to hold off on replying in detail for a while because, as we've seen, I can get way too into it, and I need to find a better personal balance for me, for the channel, and for you guys. So I'll let y'all sound off and watch the discussions. I am registered to attend the Avid webinar going over all this on Thursday the 5th. I believe it's this Thursday. Hopefully the Zoom room doesn't fill up too fast and I'm able to get in. If I am, I'll try and do a quick update on what I learn and if it has affected my opinions any at all. But regardless, thank you all so much for watching that last video as well as this one and for throwing your 2 cents in. I've learned some things reading your comments and have had some other thoughts prompted to flesh out that, I might not have had otherwise. So whatever your DAW of choice, no hate allowed here. You're awesome. I appreciate you, and have a good one.